Okay, so the question I got today that I surprisingly haven't answered in a long time is Santa Muerte jealous? And I would say, on a grand scale, I would say not in my experience. I haven't noticed her jealous of another spirit or another person or nothing like that. Not for me. But that does circulate. That does get around, and people do say that. So perhaps for them, what they're experiencing is a conflict of interest. What they could be experiencing is that her spirit, her energy, conflicts with someone or with something else. And it's just kind of perceived as jealousy because that's how our brain understands it. I'm sure back in the day there had been people that were actual devotees and they experienced major friction when they involved other spirits. Because you have to keep in mind that decades and decades and decades ago, Santa Muerte was not the same spirit that she is now. People have changed her personality around over the decades. She's a whole lot more angelic than she used to be. That's why people feared her so much. There was a reason. But the reason was not because she was bad. The reason was because she was the epitome of strength in death energy. You know, she should be feared because she's so strong. She's so vast. She should be feared because of her power, but not in the sense that you should make a devil out of her or make a bad opinion out of her. Not in that way. It's just that she holds a lot of power. So some people would say it's illogical to think that a spirit that was never human can feel human characteristics, but I think that it all depends on the circumstance and all depends on the person's connection with her. If they've built a connection in which they, it's hard to explain. If they built a connection in which they would want her to be jealous, then she might be for them. But I haven't seen it personally except for once. And this is a real testimony. Like, I have actually seen a person's connection with her and they're jealous of other spirits and jealous of other people. Now, of course, I have an opinion on that, and my opinion is a very controversial, but I'm just going to say it. My opinion on that is that person's connection with Santa Muerte is more like that of a connection with a dead person. And that's why they have the feelings of jealousy and the feelings of, ownership with this individual. And me posting this is not going to offend that person by any means, because we've already discussed it on many different occasions. And they're kind of the same mindset, but I'm not going to name names. But for me personally, I don't experience jealousy with her. I just experience like warnings like, hey, that spirit that you're messing with, or hey, that person that you're messing with could be bad for you. So be mindful. In the beginning, when I didn't understand her and I didn't understand how she operated, I felt like there was a conflict of interest if I put her in a Virgin Mary depiction, or if I put her in like a Jesus depiction. But that was silly of me to think back then because I was inexperienced. There is no, in my experience, there was no jealousy. There was just like, okay, the Virgin Mary, she's an energy. The Santa Muerte, she's an energy. The Saint Michael, he's an energy. And like Saint Jude or Jesus, they're a different energy. So it's kind of like alchemy. You get lead, you get copper, you get mercury, you get sulfur, you get iron, and you put them all together on the same altar, it's going to be like, woo! It's going to be all these different things going on at the same time, like a scientist, and you're creating a scene here. You're creating a chemical composition, and they're like kind of all intermingling. That's kind of what it's like. It's not, in my case, not jealousy. It's just different energies, So maybe diagnose and try to do some divination, or try to ask her personally, is it really jealousy, or is it like a conflict of interest, or are you warning me against this spirit, or are you warning me against that person? Try to like get on a deeper level. Don't just automatically assume that it's jealous. Because if we think that our Santa Muerte is jealous, in my opinion, that makes her as powerful as a human being. And I think that she's much more powerful than that. So, of course, it's just my opinion. But yeah, just like dissect it a little bit more before you think that your Santa Muerte is jealous. I gotta say this. A lot of old school devotees, practitioners, followers, they're very literal. And back in the day, some of them were even illiterate, and some of them were not well educated. They didn't. A lot of people really back then didn't believe in like a modern day approach to human psychology. They didn't have a very scientific view. A lot of them, they were just like housewives, or they were just people that lived on the street. They were just people that definitely needed Santa Muerte's aid, but they didn't have all day to sit and diagnose stuff like the way we do. So it could have been perceived as jealousy. Okay? Because I'm not saying all of them, but some of them might not have known any better. Because we're talking late 1800s, early 1900s, and some people weren't educated, some people weren't literate. They just passes on word of mouth. And I'm not saying they were stupid. I'm just saying that they took things as they were. If something looked jealous, it must have been jealous. If something looked angry, it must have been angry. If something looked like it needed to be appeased, they would appease it. And I think that for that reason, things were more powerful. Because, in so many words, science wasn't applied. Faith was. So, I don't know, just diagnose it and see if that is indeed really, legitimately jealousy.